Welcome to this episode of Let's Be Civil. Today on Let's Be Civil, I'm joined by Rick Yelton. Rick has been reporting on the concrete industry for more than 25 years. Currently, he is editor-at-large for World of Concrete, an Informa Markets event. Previously, he was the editor for several Hanley Wood publications such as Concrete Construction. Before his editorial career, Rick worked in supervisory and engineering positions in the mining, construction, and production segments of the concrete industry. He serves on several ASTM committees and is a member of the National Steering Committee for the Concrete Industry Management Program. All right, welcome everybody again to another edition of Let's Be Civil, a podcast about civil engineering and related professions. And in this edition of the podcast, we've got Rick Yelton, who I've known for some stretch of growing length of time. We've known each other for several years. You're a technical employer these days is a company called Informa, correct?
That's correct.
Yep. And that employer, although you're still doing the same kind of work, your employer has changed as companies have been bought and sold.
That's right.
Right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then let's maybe dig into this in a little bit more detail.
Well, my name is Rick Yelton. I'm the editor-at-large for a trade show called World of Concrete. World of Concrete is the largest annual construction trade show in the world. It's been around for almost 45 years. It represents probably the best of current applications that occur in commercial and residential construction, with an emphasis on concrete technology. My job with World of Concrete is to be their liaison between all of the facets that comprise the concrete construction industry. We are a very, very technical show. Our attendees are very technical people. They range from contractors to design engineers to repair technologists, a wide range of experts. And as a result, the show itself needs a knowledge person that can advise us on how to be pertinent to our attendees. We have to be pertinent from everything from the gathering of the ingredients to the mixing of concrete, to the placing, to the installation, to the design, the repair, and even the demolition. So my job is to work with more than 35 to 40 technical trade groups around the world to talk about the transfer of knowledge. I guess the next question I get normally asked is, what are the current trends we see in commercial construction? And I would say that probably the last 3 weeks, I've spent the majority of my time interacting with engineers who are involved with incubators of new technology. Mm-hmm. Our industry has never seen such a diverse introduction of digitization, of electrification, of robotics. We've never seen such an influx of biology into civil engineering as is pertaining in the last 5 years. I serve as, in my role for World of Concrete, I interact with about 10 to 12 incubators. These are firms that people who have great ideas go to try to get their ideas commercialized and supported by angel investors. One innovating group was a group of civil engineering students from University of Illinois. They've developed an app that they want to commercialize, that they can take out on a sidewalk and see whether the ramp of the sidewalk conforms to ADA requirements for safety. Yesterday I spoke to a developer in Australia that is trying to reduce the interaction of workers on job sites by having mobile discussion points on, not using apps, but using different kinds of connection things between people. We've been looking at trying to, try to automate the construction design process. So it's kind of, so my job's really interesting because there is such a wide range of new things coming to this industry. So when you look at what the construction world's becoming, it'll be the civil engineer will be the controller of a lot of disciplines in order to make something to happen.
So that's going to be a big part of our conversation here, but I want to step back real quick. And, when people hear the term editor-in-chief, you think of a newspaper or a magazine of some sort. So that terminology relative to a trade show, how do you have a title of editor-in-chief for a show?
Well, because we are a show is a media aspect to it all.
Okay.
Many of our attendees are asking us to, well, let's take one. An editor is supposed to be someone who's independent, who has a passion for the industry, who is able to discuss the good and the bad with attendees, exhibitors, and partners. So my job as editor for the show is, often an exhibitor will have an idea. They'll want to get some feedback of how to present that idea at World of Concrete. And we'll give them, based upon the research that we have, whether that idea is suitable for the World of Concrete or for our audience. And just as important, we have 50,000 attendees that have many, many questions about how to approach an educational activity like ourselves, and want to know where they can best spend their time with our activities. And then in addition to that, we are publishing independent developed articles that we post on a website based upon current trends in the industry. So more as a reporter of the industry, to try to be the kind of make sure that all of these innovations that are happening can be explained within a perspective of what World of Concrete is all about.
Well, that's a good explanation, because I think if you think of World of Concrete as sort of a three-dimensional live media that I'm going to for information, just like I might to a newspaper or a journal, you're helping to shape what that information is. So who's included or not included in what they are going to present. You're involved in that decision-making process.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think I think one of the challenges that many people have with the internet is that a lot of things get posted that have no validity to them, and sometimes it's important to have a site that at least tries to be as independent for the industry as we possibly can be.
Yeah.
It's a site where people feel that when they invest their time, talent, and treasure with us, they're going to get an objective return that can help them be more productive, more safe in the application, and actually help create a more durable product for the industry.
Sure. So I think you're aware that the new civil engineering program at Texas State has got this focus on technology and the application of technology to civil engineering in a broad sense, because it's all, not just concrete, but it's all civil engineering. But in the realm of the world of concrete, um, you're mentioning, technologies that are coming along, and digitization of things. Uh, so how rapidly has this wave, when you think back to the first time somebody came along and said, oh, we could do that digitally. Um, and maybe if you can remember that and identify sort of, what year that might be, and where are we now, and especially as we are in this pandemic, asymptotic curve business that everybody looks at every night. Um, what's what's the trend? What have you been seeing in terms of the rate that technology has become more and more part of what we're doing?
Well, I guess there are a couple of really very obvious answers to that. The first has to do with how we measure how concrete hardens. When we were young engineers, John, we would go out and we would make a test cylinder. We would look at the test cylinder. We would assess the strength of the concrete 7 days later,
Right.
28 days later, after the specimen has been properly cured and handled.
Yep.
Today, there are techniques that are measuring, that are digitizing the same measurements that we took in 7 to 28 days, and they're measuring them almost by the hour, if not by the minute, if not by the second.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to predict how the chemical reaction occurs fast. Another great example of digitization is how we assess the flatness of a concrete floor. It wasn't that long ago that the idea of taking a long 4 foot, 5 foot long ruler and measuring a certain particular way would give you a flatness number on a floor. Now through using laser scanners, we are able to assess the flatness of the floor, not only when it's hardened, but just prior to the hardening process, to make sure that the finisher doesn't work too hard and distort the measurement of the floor itself. When you look at the application of robotics in our industry, we have showcased robotics that are creating masonry veneer walls. We showcased robotics that have placed accurately placed rebar on bridge decks. We've looked at robotics that are actually doing actually can walk almost like walk across a floor and visually assess the workmanship of a tolerance of an as-built structure.
Mm.
And then when we look at the other aspects of digitization or technology, I'd be amiss not to talk about the introductions of new materials into what we do. The ability to assess all of the more sustainable ingredients that we can apply to our concrete. The ability to have our structures survive, hundreds of years in the future with minimal investment. So I think the ability to assess that, I think technology is whether it's digitization or electrification. When we look at this year at World of Concrete, we had a special area where we focused on the zero emissions of commercial construction, the ability to reduce emissions both by the use of battery operated equipment. So I think what we're seeing is that construction is benefiting from that. And I think the other aspect we're also seeing is the connection between the design engineer and the contractor is growing tighter all the time through better aspects of critical path management, the ability to provide to provide almost continuing artificial intelligence and machine learning to be certain that tolerances and applications are of as-built structures meet what the design parameters are. When you look at how machine learning is allowing our contractors and design engineers to really assess the success of their operations, and also to point out when the deficiencies occur early to prevent any kind of, to minimize the extent of failure. So I think that we see that in almost everything. Almost every exhibitor World of Concrete is bringing some element of that technology to the construction audience. And World of Concrete provides an opportunity for it to be showcased earlier than normal. So I think the idea is to help that out.
Yeah. Now, so one of the elements of our academic program is we will be talking with the students about sensing devices, which you've mentioned. And then you've also talked about sort of the analytics side of things. We're talking to them also about data storage, transmission, secure transmission of thing, and then ultimately turning that information into some kind of an asset management tool.
Mm-hmm.
So you sort of touched on the sensors and the analytics, but are you seeing anything in your world about the storage of all of this data and the transmission of it, and then on the other side of it, the developing of some kind of tool that can be used to assess the success or failure of, of whatever repair technique or construction methodology?
I'm surprised you say that. I just interviewed today a group of civil engineers from Switzerland who have launched a structural business focused on the application of non-destructive testing of embedded measurement devices, and they are creating what they call structural health applications that owners of both infrastructure and buildings can use to assess the current health of that structure. And then so that group is really moving. They just received a couple €1 million investment because people see that as a trend coming that way.
Right.
And then about 2 hours later after that, I spoke to a scientist group out of Kalamazoo, Michigan, who Paul Turney's group up there, who have developed, who are taking the concept of Life 360, the ability to create materials to ensure that these structures last as long as
Right.
are predicted. So,
Right.
so John, you're right. And John, what's even more interesting about that, and that's why the civil engineer is going to be the gatekeeper to all this, is that many of the people in the firms that are bringing these new technology to our industry are mechanical engineers, they're chemists, they're the
Right.
corrosion experts.
Right.
There are people who bring technical knowledge bases, but they don't see the structure as a civil engineer does. They don't see the connection between structure and human life, or structure and civilization, that civil engineers have in their background.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, yeah, because we're very much on the same page here in the things that you're saying is, just clicking things for me relative to our program, because you're really touching on the idea of the diversity of the engineer. You know, traditionally civil engineers felt diversity meant transportation, geotech, structures, materials, but not anymore. You got to do, you're going to be interacting with chemists and biologists and electricals and mechanicals. And I mean, the definition of diversity for us as civils is really going to be the proper definition, in that it's outside our own office space, that we're going to be people that we'll be working with.
That's a great point. I think whether it's diversity or inquisitiveness, just look at the work that was done at Purdue by Jan Olick's group about the study of a shrimp's claw. The idea of how to use a 3D printer to replicate this shrimp, whose claw is probably the most resilient structure known to man, because it kills it uses and hits against things. And so they're looking beyond, they're looking at biology and 3D printing to replicate structures that will be able to withstand earthquakes, that will go on beyond. So I think, when we look at when I look at a civil engineer and I look at what you call diversity, I think is inquisitiveness, the ability to recognize something and transform it into a structure or a solution to a problem that can help mankind.
Mm-hmm. Let's shift gears a little bit and just talk about how do you end up being editor-in-chief of World of Concrete? I mean, so maybe talk about your professional career path and the things that you've done.
I started off as a mining engineer. I worked in underground coal. I worked for a large ready-mix aggregate operation out of Chicago called Material Service for 10 years. I was responsible for quality control and production on projects that are iconic in civil engineering right now, the Sears Tower, Eames Expressway, some of the ideas like that. I answered an ad in a magazine looking for someone who wanted to write technical articles. And I submitted, my first article was, I submitted a draft about quality sand, the removal of lignite from quality sand to make quality concrete. The editor at the time of the magazine said, "An engineer who can write, how rare they are," and asked me to join the magazine as a technical writer. And we connected with the audience. I think our audience is they're very technical. They enjoy talking about their, we can spend hours talking about we can talk hours about how a crack was formed in a piece of concrete, right? So the ability to communicate with with our industry, with the suppliers to our industry, kind of gave me an opportunity to become an editor for a magazine. And the success of the magazine led me to become part of World of Concrete as their editor.
So what made you apply for this position to begin with? I mean, did you feel you had some writing talents to begin with, or were you just looking for something different to do, or what motivated that initial inquiry that has you sitting here today talking to me?
I think I was very fortunate to work for a very innovative company, Material Service. We were on the edge of everything.
Okay.
And I found myself in wanting to be involved with knowing what's about to happen next.
Okay.
The ability to take someone's dream and showcase it either as a completed structure or as an innovation or as just solving a problem that everyone else has. So I really find myself the niche of listening to people, understanding them in their own terms, and finding it fascinating to explain those terms to an audience of a couple 100,000 people.
Mm-hmm. So where has this taken you? So travels, maybe this question is sort of a two-parter. Has it taken you to different locations where you reside? Have you moved around as a part of having this career? And where has it taken you? Because you've mentioned a few times about communicating with other engineers and individuals about what they're doing. So does that take you to parts of the U.S. or the world?
I guess the answer is concrete's the second most plentiful man-made material after purified water in the world, right?
Right.
So as part of my job for World of Concrete, we've interacted with contractors and around almost on all continents. We've been I've presented with you in the Philippines. I've presented in China, India, Brazil, Chile, Canada, many places in Europe. I think the commonality that construction has is concrete, and the commonality that concrete has is the fact that it's everywhere and the problems are the same everywhere. So the ability to provide solutions. I answered questions last night from a civil engineer in India. 2 days ago, I got some questions from someone who I never met from Peru. So the idea is that it is interesting that if you want, as a civil engineer involved in commercial construction, you're able to interact with the world probably more now than ever before as the standards, as our construction techniques become more common, and as our material standards become more common as well.
But you've basically seen the world, or a good part of it, because of the career path that you've had.
I was in Iceland talking about resiliency. Yes, the ability, the topics, and what's unique about the U.S. is that everybody wants to know what's happening here. Institutions like yourselves and other ones have developed faculty around the world, and the innovativeness, the acceptance of change, the ability to do things on big scales. Everybody wants to know what's happening here.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so it's the opportunity to be a small tool in that technology transfer is an honor and something that I respect the World of Concrete allows me to do.
Yeah. How long have you been doing this work?
I've been with World of Concrete almost 20 years now.
And it, as I said at the beginning, the job has basically remained the same.
It has.
In terms of what you're trying to accomplish. The players are changing and such. But how many different companies have owned the show?
Well, we don't worry about that. All we worry about is.
I know, but I'm still asking you the question.
We were actually. This is our fourth owner in my lifetime.
Right.
And I think the beautiful thing about it is that they've left us alone.
Right.
The idea is that we are who we are, and that's how we look at it.
And wouldn't you say, I mean, part of the reason for asking this is I would say, as an attendee, a participant, and now, I do a workshop as a part of World of Concrete with a colleague. As I look around in it, I see it same. I mean, it's evolving and it improves, but even with even with different owners, they haven't radically shifted what this show is about and its purpose and objectives and successes.
No, but you asked the question of does a show like World of Concrete need an editor? We need to be true to the folks who support us. So when I close my eyes and I look at our attendee, I can identify with a contractor who is about to place a project, having to solve a problem. I can look at a young engineer looking for a way to solve a solution. And I think as long as we keep that as our goal and we close our eyes, we know who our attendee is and how we can solve the world, we'll stay true to the mission that we have.
Yeah. So so it sounds like you feel fortunate in that you've been allowed to maintain the mission and the vision as ownership has changed and
Yeah, and the other nice thing about the job I have is that they give me a lot of leeway. So I still go on I probably was on maybe 25 or 30 different projects last year, talking to contractors, learning what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So the ability to see what's actually happening at a different place. And I think, John, you asked before what encouraged me to take a job like this. When I was an area manager, I saw the same things 20 times a week. Here, I have the ability to see 20 different things in a week. So I think that's the challenge. That was the benefit of the job.
Yeah. Not the same thing all day, every day, kind of. Yeah.
And the ability to share an idea from a foreman in Greenville, South Carolina, to someone in Tucson,
Mm-hmm.
and the ability to share good ideas.
Well, right, and I think in conversations you and I've had in the past, the forward thinking component of it is, as you mentioned earlier, people ask, like, what's the next best thing? What's the great thing coming down the line? You're actually seeing this before the rest of us are, because you're getting, people are contacting you and saying, come and talk with us about what we're doing.
Right.
Yeah,
Very true.
which we're doing too. Just a different kind of a product in a sense of it being an academic program. We're coming up on the time here, but I wanted to have you comment on a couple, what I would say, relatively recent developments in the world of concrete functions and activities, and that stems from the concrete industry management program that is at 4 universities in the U.S. And I bring it up for the reasons that there's a educational component that goes on for these students, and you were significantly involved, if not the originator of the idea of having sort of a competition of presentation on what the what the students are doing. Yeah. So if you can take a couple minutes and kind of speak to what World of Concrete is doing with the CIM program and the auction, but the things specifically or directly with the students that most people are probably not familiar with. So
the concrete industry management program is a program that is a program focused on business management, and our goal with involving ourselves with CIM students is to have them see how broad and how fantastic all the innovations are at World of Concrete.
Yeah.
But I think, John, you referred to the fact that World of Concrete sponsors the Weatherton Award presentations. While the World of Concrete appears to be gigantic and all these aspects of it all, we want to bring back the idea that what makes our industry great is the interaction of people within the industry. So we invite the CIM students to talk about their internships, the research projects that they are working on with the professors, the interaction they have with industry as they develop through our program. We are a very unique program. My son's a graduate of the CIM program. He's currently a senior business development expert for Turner Construction of Baltimore. But the reality, what makes our program very unique is the fact that the vast majority of our students are first-time college graduates with their immediate family. The vast majority of our students, all of our students take internships. And so we develop a kinship in our industry. And I think World of Concrete looks at the future, and we partner not only with CIM, but with other programs as well to bring their students out to see the practical aspects of what construction is all about. So I think our involvement is being sure that our CIM students know that there is more to concrete construction, more to commercial construction than just a drawing board. You know, John, you and I, when we started off engineers, we probably had, I know I had 17 hours of drafting, 17 hours of showing how I couldn't draw. And all those aspects of it all. And if we want to be sure, we want to give a vision of what the future can be, because when you look at World of Concrete, from geopolymers to robots, from laser screeds to laser scanners, from technology to biology, the concrete industry is changing so fast, and it's important for the students, your students, and all students to realize that there's an opportunity to be there. But more importantly, we want them to know that great ideas have a place in our world.
And in one location over a period of days, they can experience everything. You know, when I talk about what is World of Concrete to people that don't know, it's everything and anything about the industry is in one place at the same time. You know, and for students to be able to walk around and meet with representatives of companies that are core deep in the middle of everything concrete or periphery, you couldn't do it in a better set of circumstances.
I think our best experience is the fact that we have our students get a chance to meet successful contractors who often invested their life savings to start a business. And I think the love of what we hope to project is not all the technology, but the passion that is required to have our industry succeed.
Sure. Well, I've got to wrap it up here, because I know that students don't like to listen to something more than about 30 minutes. And every time I say that to a student, they laugh and smile and shake their head. So I appreciate your time today, Rick, spending some time with us at Let Be Civil and passing on some of your wisdom about World of Concrete and just concrete in general to the up and coming civil engineers and young adults in the profession. So I really appreciate you spending some time with me today.
Well, we hope that everyone works together to make a better world of concrete, right?
Yeah. We will just keep trying to find the next best thing, right, to make the world safe. I tell people it's got to be safe, functional, and have economic value, and we got to keep pushing that envelope. So, all right, sir. Have a good rest of the day. Yep. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay.
See you.